Hey guys, welcome back to another speed build. This time we are going to be renovating or completely redoing, as it happens, the Willow Creek gym, originally called Movers and Shakers, but I just renamed it the Willow Creek Gym, so if you're looking for it on the gallery, that's what it's called, and my gallery ID will be in the description down below if you want to download it. I think it turned out really nicely. It definitely matches the style of the library next door, which is really what I was going for, to get some nice cohesive vibes in this little shopping strip in Willow Creek. Definitely doesn't match the architecture on the opposite side of the street, but we can just pretend that doesn't exist, and that once I get the other two buildings done as well, that's just all that exists there. There's no empty shells in the background, essentially. But yeah, so I did have an idea for what I wanted to do going into this. My plan ended up changing a couple of times, but I definitely think it changed for the better. The one thing that I definitely kept that I wanted to do from the start was this pool on the second floor. I wanted to do this kind of infinity style, and of course it's not actually an infinity pool, but essentially an open air pool on the second level that was kind of in the center of the build, which obviously meant that I had to kind of work around that in the downstairs, but I essentially just made the downstairs a kind of cafe and locker room slash lobby area, which I think worked out really well, and then all of the actual gym aspects really are on the second and third floors. When I originally started building this, I didn't plan on having a third floor at all, as you can see when I actually laid out the shell in the beginning, but I ended up adding one, and I really like how it turned out. And yeah, so this was just what I ended up doing with the kind of outside of the pool. At first I was like, maybe I'll just leave it and not do anything with it, but then I decided to kind of tie it in with the library next door to have this kind of glass enclosure of greenery. It was a bit of a struggle to find things that I could size down enough to put in here without them clipping out of the window or into the pool. Definitely ended up with some stuff clipping into the pool, but at the end of the day I just kind of said screw it and let it happen. But yeah, so I thought this kind of tied in very nicely with the similar element in the library next door. I had originally thought when I was planning this build that I was going to make the columns in the front there, the 4 columns, kind of living green columns, and I even went in and like tested like which green elements can I rotate in this way and how do they look when I do that, to try to stick them into the columns. But once I decided to do this with the area around the pool, I just decided that that was gonna be a bit much, and I still like how it turned out though. I really think that it worked out nicely and made for a nice little like design element on the front of the building without looking a bit like too over the top. And then I went ahead and made these little kind of corner areas, seating areas, so there were little benches in the front there. For this build I used a lot of spa day, like a lot of spa day, which I really enjoyed because I've never really seen people, at least like the summers that I follow or watch speed builds from, use spa day all that much, but it's one of my favorite packs for doing this kind of build. I guess I don't follow a ton of people who do more modern builds like this, so I'm sure that I can't imagine that people who do builds like this don't use it often. But yeah, I've just never really seen anyone use it much, and I use, gosh, like everything. Not everything, a lot of it's also base game, but I think Spa Day is the only pack I used, except for in the bathrooms I did use Discovery University stalls, just because they make my life so much easier. I thought about building out actual like fake stalls to avoid using it, but I just decided I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna let it make my life easier. But yeah, for everything else, I think Spa Day is the only thing I used. Here I'm just going in and kind of figuring out what my plan is going to be for the second floor. I ended up going back down and actually working on the lobby area more, but I did want to figure out what was going on up above so I could know how to situate the stairs before I try to furnish the lobby. It takes me kind of a minute to figure out what I'm doing here, and I'm actually going to kind of leave it and move on and then come back later and completely redo this part of it with the bar here. And I left the locker rooms for last because I didn't want to deal with what I dealt with last time when I had the build fill up after I technically completed the venue and then needed to playtest stuff. So I deliberately left some of the essential items until the very end so I wouldn't have to deal with that when I was having my sim come in to playtest some things to make sure that everything was functional. I think those saunas are one of the only things I didn't playtest, although I can't imagine why they wouldn't work. But yeah, so this aspect of the front lobby I do end up keeping until the end. I decided to build this really long, kind of ostentatious front desk. Obviously it's not functional, but I actually do work at a gym, at the front desk of a gym, so it's very realistic. At least it doesn't look anything like the gym I work at, but I thought it was nice. I just wanted to use those base game countertops because I just thought they were the most cohesive. I don't know. I didn't want to use the spa day ones because I knew I was going to use those a lot later, so I wanted to do something a bit different. And then what I did there, I ended up switching later, but it is a really neat trick I saw on Twitter the other day where you take a dishwasher and then size it down to create an open looking countertop where you could put chairs or some other decorations if you wanted to. I really wanted to use it, and I thought it worked out really well here until later on I go to place computers there and realize that it's not going to work because they won't sit on countertops, so I had to change it around a bit, but it is definitely a hack that I'll be using in later builds. And then here I decided to use these fish tanks from Spa Day as well to go ahead and make this little back display area. I thought I was just going to put those big shelves there, but I decided it didn't look all that great, and then I really wanted to fill up this wall and not just have it be empty space, so I end up making a little cluttered up display. Obviously these won't necessarily be, well, they definitely won't be functional for your Sims, but like if you're thinking if this is a gym in real life, like they're not necessarily super easy to reach, but hey, maybe they've got like a ladder laying around they use to reach their towels. I don't know. I mean, at my gym, at least before COVID, like we had so many towels behind the desk all the time, so I thought that part was realistic, but not necessarily being able to reach them. And then I stacked up these meditation stools from Spa Day to kind of look like maybe they rent them out to people. I thought about I thought about putting soccer balls, but I didn't think they would necessarily fit the aesthetic because we do have them from Discovery University, and obviously it's pretty realistic that you would have those to rent out behind the front gym of the desk as well, but I just thought they didn't really fit. Yeah, you saw a brief appearance. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with what I want to put on the other shelves here, but I just decided to go with these base game towel stacks because I thought they fit pretty well. Then I decided I really didn't like how this was working out, so I decided to actually go in and make it more of a built-in look. I'm now going through and trying to find the right kind of pillar that I want to use from Debug, and I find one eventually that I think works out pretty well. I do end up using that concrete one I just pulled out. I didn't find one I decided I liked better, so I just went ahead and raised it up over the fish tanks and then used it at every intersection of the fish tanks, if that makes any sense. To kind of create a more structured built-in look, and also it took up more space on the shelves so they didn't look quite as empty without as much stuff, so I didn't have to place as many things, which was thankfully made my life a lot easier. But yeah, now I'm just filling up the shelves. I decided to keep every shelf, like every level, the same item just to make things a bit more cohesive. And yeah, I didn't fill them all up because, one, I didn't want to spend that much time doing that, but also I thought that was pretty realistic, like maybe, people are out and about in the gym and they've used all those things. And then I used those debug lights that I used a lot in the library build as well to create some illumination there, as if there's lights in the shelves maybe. Here I am discovering that my idea is not going to work how I wanted it to, and having to replace those countertops with desks. I switched them out for that glass one that I also use in the library, which is actually a dining table, I believe, but I like how it looks a lot. And yeah, I just kind of try to fit them in. The glass kind of sticks out on either side, but things happen. What else? Yeah, I switched up the flooring behind the desk, and then I do come back later and change the entire flooring in the whole lobby as well. Here I was trying to figure out something to put above there, and I ended up settling on that light up signature sign that I've never really used anywhere, and I do keep that until the end of the build, even though I changed pretty much everything else about that cafe area. Here I decided to come upstairs and finally start figuring out what I was going to do with what I kind of termed like the cardio like workout area, which I essentially just end up filling the whole floor with treadmills, and also figure out the pool deck, which I think turned out very, very nicely. What else am I doing? Oh yeah, I changed all of the colors of all the windows in the pools because I thought it fit better with the kind of front of the build. And then I went in and added them to the back to make it more cohesive, even though you can't see them the way you can the other ones. Unfortunately, I couldn't really figure out how to fit these loungers how I wanted, so I just ended up putting only 2 because they were the only thing that fit, but I did add more seating around the whole area. Some tables, which I did not clutter up because I just thought it would be more realistic that they would be empty for people to put whatever they wanted on it. Tried to add those debug lights to that, but it didn't quite work. And then I decided to add a glass roof on top of it because it felt like the perfect opportunity. And I think it turned out looking really nicely like that, even though I had originally planned not to roof it. And then I wanted to have kind of a bench slash storage area for people who were maybe out at the pool, so I decided to use these spa day cabinets just lowered all the way down. I used obviously the super short ones and then the super tall ones, which I thought looked really nice together. And then I had a wonderful idea in a second here. Once again, using that tool mod. I was just gonna leave it like this. I was looking for stuff to kind of clutter up the area, added a hamper, but then I thought, well, what if I could make the kind of benches that I have happen here actually functional? And I managed to do that by adding these, I think they're called like the Peaceful Poof from Spa Day inside it. Trying to get them all straight and like lined up was a pain in the butt, but they do work, so your Sims can sit on them, which I was really pleased with. So yeah, got all that done, and that's essentially it for the pool deck, I believe. Then I go in and actually finish up the second floor, or at least do most of the second floor. I kind of did it in chunks because it was like the least interesting part of the build to me, because it's just a bunch of workout equipment. I wanted to make sure that those the boxing stations, I can't remember, the punching bags, that they worked, since I had all placed them, and they did. Then I came in here and added this wall so I could have some treadmills in front of, or TVs in front of treadmills, the classic gym situation. I put all of these other workout machines here and decided I wanted to do a third floor, so I ended up taking a lot of them out. But yeah, so here I am deciding I want to do a third floor and putting that in to put some yoga studios in. Obviously it doesn't function exactly like a spa, so you're not going to have, you know, actual yoga classes going on, but everything that I put up there is functional, so your Sims can't do yoga, which we'll get to in a minute when I start placing those. So I just put stairs on either side, and then added those machines back, so I made sure I had some of those. Obviously it's a pretty treadmill heavy build, but you know, I use these base game lights to light the space and just put those super subtle saucer lights into them to make them brighter, and added more of those debug lights to light up the TV area because I felt like it was still pretty dark. Here I am starting to figure out what I'm going to do with the third floor. I knew I wanted to have a little lobby area and then 2 separate studios. So here I was trying to figure out where the middle was to make sure they were evenly sized. And then, yeah, just figuring out the walls and the floors and what doors I wanted to use. Like I said, lots and lots of spa day in this build, but I was kind of like, you know, if I'm not going to use it here, where am I going to use it? For a lot of these things. Some of these things I use a lot, as you saw in the library, like the walls and flooring from Spa Day, I use all the time. But like these doors, these double doors with that design on them, like I'm never going to use that anywhere else, so I might as well put them here. Lots and lots of yoga mats, and I was trying to figure out what swatches I wanted to use, and I really think that that little like black and white bamboo one is very cool looking. Then I wanted to add a little like check-in area up here as well, like maybe it's a separate kind of part of the facility, so you're also going to check into your classes. Obviously, another thing that is not really functional, but more just for the aesthetic of it. And a little waiting area, like maybe you got here early for your class, so you're just going to hang out here. I wanted to find a rug that would work there, but I just never did, so I moved on. Lots of mirrors in those as well to really hammer home that yoga studio vibe. And then I decided to figure out what I was going to do with the roof up here. Another fun living rooftop for the most part, but I did add all these meditation stools as well, so your Sims can come out here to meditate. It took a bit of rearranging to get them how I like, and I still don't really like how they look. I just think it looks very plain, but definitely functional, so I ended up leaving it like that, and then making these two sections on either side of the glass roof planters, and then the top of the third floor also becomes just a massive planter as well. But it's one of my favorite parts of these builds, the library and this one, is to find all the plants and arrange them around, try to make it look natural and beautiful and fun, and light them as well, because I think they look beautiful at night when you get the light just right. But yeah, so this just took me a minute of going in and pulling out debug plants that I found that looked similar to the stuff in the world, and then also the stuff I had on the library roof next door, so it looks really cohesive. I ended up pulling out the wrong version of these like triple bushes that they have in debug, and I went back and pulled out the right ones in a minute here. I couldn't figure out why they looked so weird, and then I realized it was because there's two versions of it, and one of them is smaller and lighter, and I had just grabbed the darker, bigger ones. And once again, these Lily of the Valley squares making another appearance. I really need to remember to put these down before I landscape, because it becomes such an issue to try to figure out where I have and haven't placed them in areas as big as this where I want to use them, but I didn't want to size them up and lose the detail on them. So I just had to go in and individually try and figure out where they were and where they weren't, and just hope that I covered most of the spaces that are visible. When it's really under a plant that you really can't see, it doesn't bother me not to have it there, but yeah, they're just kind of an essential part of my landscaping style. And I think I go in and add some like wildflowers and daisies as well, just to give it a bit more volume, but I didn't want it overrun with huge bushes. So I just added these flowers here and there to give it a bit more volume. So that's not exactly what depth is really what I was going for. Then I think after this I decided to go down and do the locker rooms finally, or maybe I redo the cafe area first. I think I do that first, which did take me a minute of kind of fiddling around with exactly what I wanted to do, but I ended up figuring it out in the end and being pretty happy with how it turned out. Yeah, here I am deciding to change how I had put the lobby, because I really wasn't happy with how it had ended up. Changed the floors, like I said, and then decided to make it more of a cafe looking area than just the bar with these tables. And man, did it take me a really long time to figure out how I wanted to place these tables and the sickle bar. I rearranged these for so long. I just was not happy with how it was looking. I didn't feel like it was looking organic enough. I think I'm happy with how it turned out, but it was one of those things where finally I was just like, you know what, I'm just gotta leave it. I've been looking at this for too long and it's not gonna help, and it probably looks fine. I'm just giving myself, more work essentially. But yeah, I decided to kind of angle the bar in a kind of more, once again, organic way. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with these walls because I felt they were really empty. I toyed around with the idea of putting these fountains here, but then I decided to just go ahead and put the couches back and use this bamboo plant from Spa Day once again as a little divider. Now I'm going to go in and actually do the locker rooms. When I originally put it down, I was like, oh, 2 locker rooms. And I was like, what am I talking about? Like, this is The Sims. We can have any kind of restroom we want, so why not have all gender locker rooms? So I decided to do, instead of doing the separated into 2, like, by quote unquote the binary genders, I decided to go ahead and just make one half of the room lockers, and then the other half would be the shower slash toilet area. So this is the locker half, and then I saved the toilet half until the very, very end of the build to make sure that I finished everything I wanted to in regards to playtesting before I actually finished the lot wholly. So yeah, I just made this little kind of locker unit with all the lockers from Spa Day, and then added the cabinets on the top because I used the tall wall height for the bottom of the build because I never get to use it or any of the windows that come with it or doors in my residential builds, so I definitely use it a lot of the times on my commercial builds. I decided to make this wall the kind of sink and primp area. I know at least a lot of gym locker rooms that I've been in have a lot of open countertops with big mirrors to kind of fix yourself up after you shower and work out. I wanted to use these pedestal sinks in there to look like they were kind of, the sinks that are bowls above the counters, but they weren't functional. So I went and switched them out for this Spa Day counter that I also don't use often, or the sink that I don't use often. Just adding some details. I ended up using these full towel shelves from the base game that I also don't use often, but I thought they looked pretty appropriate right there. And then these are going to be as kind of fake towel drop stations once I actually get in there and clutter that up. And then once again, with my overdoing it on the landscaping, I made the center of the benches in the locker section a planter, because why not? And just added a lot of the plants that I had used outside, obviously sized down, and more Lily of the Valley. But that's about it for the locker section of things. And then I can't exactly, what am I doing here? Oh, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to put above the lockers, because once again, with the tall wall height, I wanted to fill up that space. I just felt like it looked unfinished. And I ended up sizing up these Spa Day grass planters to put on the top, and I really, really liked how this turned out. Definitely something that I'll be using in the future, especially maybe for some more living rooftops. I thought they looked really great sized up like that. Then I decided to add soap to all the sinks because wash your hands, oh my gosh. And then I think I add a couple of laundry hampers to the counters here to make them look like built-in towel drop stations like I was talking about earlier. It was hard to try to make sure they were not clipping through the wall but also not showing in those handles of these countertops because I didn't realize how far back they went. I thought I was going to put a rug here in the locker section, but it just didn't work out how I wanted. Then I came back up to the second floor to figure out what I was going to do with this area here. I knew I wanted to put couches here, but I wasn't sure exactly how I was going to deal with them. I just ended up, putting couches there using these Spa Day tables that I never use either, and then pulling out a magazine from Debug to put on one of them to make it look a little bit more lived in. I added windows to the sauna sections of the locker room because I felt like the back looked pretty boring, but as with the library, I didn't really worry too much about how the outside of the build looked from any direction except for the front, because since it's a commercial build, I just don't think that it really matters. And I still think that it looks very much like what I wanted it to look like as a gym. So here I was kind of thinking okay, I think I'm done, and then I was going in and I was like, no, actually I want to add more detail to these yoga studios, so I added these Spa Day walls of candles. They're room dividers, I think. Technically they're filed under lighting, but I would use them as room dividers, and I decided to add them to the mirror wall because I really liked the kind of lighting it gave. It gave a more yellowy, warm lighting that I thought was very, very realistic for a yoga studio. I used these bamboo planters as kind of dividers for the check-in area, and then added these lamps in here to kind of change the lighting as well, because I realized I just had left the subtle saucers that I'd put up here to light it just to see when I started the build, and that's not really what I wanted to do. So I ended up adding some of those spa day, like, they're also filed under lights, but I don't know explicitly what they're called, at the top of the stairs, and then more debug lights to kind of cheat my way. I use these base game outdoor lights to light the plants on the roof because, like I mentioned in the last speed build, I really enjoy the Discover University debug ones, but they're not quite as bright, I've discovered, so I think I'm going to stick with those base game ones in the future. And then I thought I was really done here, so I went in and put in the showers and the toilets. I ended up pulling them out later, but here is where we're gonna end the talk through because it got so long. So I'm just gonna walk you through what I do for the rest of the build in the actual build. So let's jump into that. Here we are at the Willow Creek gym as I've finished it. This is what the front looks like. Let's switch into a better camera mode. This is what the front facade of the building looks like. I really, really love how it turned out. I think it looks super modern and bright, as does the library next door. Like, I think they look super great next to each other and very cohesive. I am just very, very happy with how this turned out. So let's jump inside. Let's go downstairs first. Alright, so coming into the lobby, this is the view. We have the cafe that I talked about struggling with so much, the front desk area with the fish tanks, and I realized actually after adding the windows to the other half of the pool, they end up showing in the background of my quote-unquote built-ins here, but I actually kind of like how it looks, so I think I'm gonna leave it like that. We seem to have lost a light here, which will be put back before it goes on the gallery, but maybe it's because I'm too close. Yeah, there it is. And I think the other one over there will show up. But yeah, so this is what the front lobby looks like. I am happy with how it turned out, although it definitely was probably the thing I struggled most with in the build. I'm gonna hop into the locker rooms. This is the vibe. This is probably one of the parts of the build I'm most surprised by because it wasn't something that I really planned to do like this, but I ended up loving it. And here is where we cut off, is with me placing these benches. So I did add these towels, and then I built this built-in light out of one of the tables from Spa Day that I used Tool to rotate and then raise onto the wall, and then I used the like wall strips of light from Spa Day, and I sized down a bunch of those to fit in there and then turned them orange, and I think it looks really neat and adds a little bit more detail to this wall that I just felt was very empty. But yeah, that's pretty much the entire downstairs. These are the vibes. Oh, there's a saucer, I forgot. That will be removed before this ends up on the gallery. And then we can go upstairs to the second floor, or we could if it was open. Okay, here we go. So this is the second floor. This is coming up from the stairs. I did go back and add these Spa Day lit up mirrors to this wall. I thought that just was the best vibe. And then, yeah, it's honestly the simplest part of the build, just all of the essentials to make a functional gym. And then another one of my favorite parts of the build is the pool deck. I just absolutely adore how this turned out. It was definitely pretty much exactly what I wanted to make of it, and I love that I figured out the bench situation over here to make them fully functional, and I just think it's a nice vibe. Definitely probably not big enough for an actual gym pool, but you know, it's fine. It's The Sims. Who cares about realism? Definitely not me. And then we can go ahead and check out the third floor. So this is the yoga studio part of the build. This is the lobby, quote-unquote area, waiting area. This is what I was trying to say that I didn't know what it was called. This podium, some sort, large column that's also light. It's, I think, filed under lights, but whatever. Yeah, this is pretty simple once again, and then the yoga studio is another aspect that I'm really proud of. This I am super proud of. This light fixture I built, I had done this after my clip cut off, but I originally just put those debug lights in here as well. But when I was putting these benches into the locker room, I realized they would look super cool if I flipped them over and raised them up and then put a light inside them to make them look like their own light fixture. So all I did was use tool, like I said, to flip it 180 degrees, put it on the ceiling, and then I used the base game square lights and just put 3 of them in there and change them to this kind of neutral gray swatch. So I think it looks really, really neat. Definitely something that I'll be using in other builds as well. And then I decided, after I added these candle walls, to go in and add a dresser, as if it's, you know, the storage area for the instructors. Maybe they've got a bunch of towels in there or extra yoga mats and probably cleaning supplies to clean up the mats and stuff like that after class, and some plants because I felt like that was necessary. Again, the little meditation area out here, and then the living roof. And that is, well, I'll show you the actual roof as well. That is it for this build. So yeah, I will end this with some nice screenshots for you to look at the details. I hope you guys all enjoyed this very, very much. I think I will continue on this trend and have the next build be the bar next door. So this one's going bye-bye next. But if you would like to download this build for yourself, like I said, it's on the gallery under Willow Creek Gem, and my gallery ID is watercatcherttv_. That will be written in the description. If you would like to check it out, be sure to go follow me on Twitter. I post progress updates on there, as well as like sneak peeks before the speed builds go live of some of my favorite details from them. And other than that, you can catch me on here with speed builds every Friday and random videos during other parts of the week when I have the time. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a like, leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear what you guys are working on in The Sims right now, and I will see you guys all next week.